first time we took him for a walk, he had a muzzle on, and he tried to like go at his shoulder while he was in the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been a nudge, not sure what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like a growl or a menace. And then my son-in-law tried to interact with him and hung his foot down, and he got up and just kind of mouthed his foot.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't break skin, like didn't do anything really hard.
Yeah.
So I took the day off on Monday to hang out with him. Karen watches our grandson on Monday.
Yeah.
And he was super focused or reactive to our grandson, and then the one time I picked up the phone and put my earbud in and turned away, he was like bolting towards him like he wanted to go play. What would have happened when he got there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But Karen just kind of like hunkered down, shielded him, and said no, and he backed off, and I spun around, and he was, corrected.
Yeah.
Remote, e-collar in hand. So.
So is it that he hasn't necessarily done anything, but it's like we're not sure what he's going to do, and he seems too fixated to like take the chance? Is that kind of it?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Like my best example is Pebbles did an interaction with the cat at the garden center down at the end of the street. Mm-hmm. Walked up slowly, tentatively, got real close, nuzzled. Everybody was fine. They went their separate ways. Mm-hmm. He came up, same scenario, real slow approach. As soon as they touched noses, he was like, wham, shake, shake.
Yeah.
And I got him to release. Cat got the better of the exchange, I think. Nicked his ear pretty good. So
Yeah.
I need a new pair of shorts from all the ear blood all over it.
Naturally, yeah.
So after that, it was like, he's kind of unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And I get small game as, normal concern.
Sure.
That's really instinctive. But is he viewing our...
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Game?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to know exactly, right? Generally speaking, we don't see a correlation between the two. You know what I mean? It's obviously a natural concern that people have. We typically just, I don't see it as much to the case, right? So a couple points just based on the things that you told me right off the rip, right? So our goal with any dog, right, is we need to be able to essentially ensure every social encounter is going to go well, right? So what I do is there's a lot of places I just don't allow stuff to happen to begin with, right? So the example you brought up with the cat at the garden center, right? Let's say I'm with my dogs and I go to the garden center with them and I'm walking around with them and there's a cat there. I don't care how good my dog, like we have a cat at home, right? And our dogs are all good with the cat and stuff at this point. There's no way I'm letting my dogs go up and say hi to that cat, right? If I'm out on a walk and I see another dog or a person or something like that, there's no way I'm letting my dogs go up and say hi to that. I'm teaching them in those contexts, you gotta just ignore them, right? Just completely pay no mind to them, because those are situations I can't 100% control. We're not going into the garden center with the expectation of like, all right, we're gonna socialize Leonidas with the cat here right now, we're gonna socialize Pebbles with the cat now, or anything like that, right? So I kind of avoid that situation, right? Then in the scenarios where I do have control over it, let's say you guys had a cat at home and you wanted to properly introduce them or something, right? Generally speaking, there's a controlled way we're going to go about doing that introduction, right? Same with other people or other dogs or anything like that. And the tough thing about the situation you're in is like, so kids, right? Like obviously, it sounds like you guys watch you said your grandson like fairly often, obviously. Obviously Karen's with the grandson a lot. But the grandson doesn't like live at the house. So in Leonidas's mind, right, like this is still just like an outsider that's coming in, and tack on to that kids are like in dogs' minds, at least for the most part, pretty weird. You know what I mean? They're small, they make weird noises, they move weirdly, they smell different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So I think a lot of people make the mistake of whether they're having a kid or whether they're watching a kid, is they go into it too much with this like, we're gonna like let them get used to interacting with each other and this and that, where I even coach my clients, like if you're gonna have a kid, typically that first month that the kid is in the house, there's gonna be zero interaction between the dogs and the kid. You know what I mean? Just to kind of right now he's very concerned. He's for whether excited or not or this or that. He's like, there's a kid over there and I don't know what's going on with it. And I got my eyes glued on it and I don't know what to make of this situation. So typically speaking, I tell people you're going to be using bed stays and down stays in the presence of that kid until that completely goes away, right? I want him to go from I'm really concerned or excited about this thing over there to like he's not even paying it any mind because it's basically like furniture to him at this point. From there, once we have the state of mind correct, that's when we start the introduction process. You know what I mean? And even then, like, I mean, in your case it's a little different because it's a family member, but in a lot of cases I'm like, a lot of people's dogs just don't really need to be around outside kids. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that would be the thing is I don't know what your structure has been so far as how you've been going about introducing, or if, you've primarily just been like trying to do like controlled little interactions and stuff like that. But my expectation, at least until that fixation goes away, would be there's no interaction and I'm just giving 100% direction to him anytime he's around the kid right now until I see him hit that point where he's no longer concerned, right? And for some dogs, like, that's a short process. For some dogs, it's a long process. You know what I mean? Like, my one dog, she's pretty solid with anybody and anything. And my mom runs a child daycare service out of her house. And I used to take her over there to play with the kids sometimes. And it was a really, like, easy process of, like, a couple days of just get her acclimated around the kids. And then she was fine. My other dog, Vinny, right? Like, just in general with people, when I first got him when he was really young, he was a little sketchy around new people. So I did like 2 or 3 months of just like basically anytime a guest came over the house, he was in the corner in a bed stay just minding his own business and nobody was messing with him and he was not messing with them. And I did that for, like I said, about 3 months or so until I saw him hit that point where he was no longer like, there's people over there, and he started just like when they would come in, lay down, take a nap, relax, because he knew he was going to be there for a while. Again, and now he's the dog that anybody that comes over my house, he sees out, he's hanging out, he's playing with them, this, that, and he's cool because I did all that groundwork of basically telling him, you don't need to worry about what's going on over here right now, right? And because that's such a weird situation for him, with like a young child, he probably has minimal to no exposure around them or anything like that, that's probably going to be the route you have to take initially with him to start getting him to a place where it's like, we're just not going to push this right now, and we're just going to get him comfortable just existing around the child right now. You know what I mean? And that would be my starting place as far as that situation is concerned. Outside of the kid, how has he been with other people and stuff? Have you had any issues?
He's very good.
Good.
Borderline indifferent when we're out on walks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
exactly what I want. There's the occasional, I would call it a positive reaction to somebody who's
sure.
like, oh my gosh, Leonidas,
yeah.
by name and starts freaking out.
Uh-huh.
And he kind of follows Pebble's lead.
Sure.
She's super gregarious. And,
yeah.
He'll come up and maybe get some rubs, and then he's just going to kind of wander off.
Just does his own thing. Yeah.
He's nowhere near as affectionate as she is
sure.
to people outside of the family.
Uh-huh.
If you're in the family, he's all over you. He's a 150-pound lap dog.
Yeah.
So he does well out. He's mildly dog reactive still.
Yeah.
I'll hear him whimper occasionally when there's another reactive dog that we're crossing paths with. So we see a fair amount of the same dogs just based on our walking schedule.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a lot of downstay work done.
Uh-huh.
I don't think he really finished his training with you guys.
Yeah, he didn't finish his down, I don't think, but his sit stays and his bed stays are pretty good, I know. So I would just, anywhere you would typically need a downstay, I would just utilize a sit with the expectation of if he's going to lay down if you have him hold it for long enough. Yeah. And that'll at least pattern that in for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it sounds like the biggest issue is with the grandson.
Yep.
I really think you probably just need to slow down the actual interactions a little bit. I think he probably hasn't had the opportunity to get comfortable around the grandchild because it's probably been, as far as the routine of them together and stuff, been a little unpredictable in his mind as far as what's going on. Like sometimes they're walking together, right? It sounds like you had the muzzle on in some of the case. Sometimes I'm sure you guys have done some bed stays, sometimes I'm sure he's probably been free, you know what I mean? And because there hasn't been like consistent routine as far as when the grandson is out, this is what you're doing right now. He hasn't been able to relax into that, you know what I mean? And I would start with that how often is your grandson over?
Once a week.
Once a week. Okay. I would say if it's only once a week, I would say at least for 1 month. So 4 times when the grandson is over, Leonidas is in a bed stay right now. Right? And just have that be the routine for a month and see after a month, what difference do we notice? You know what I mean? Like, does he seem like he truly has hit a point where he's like, all right, you know, and just kind of relaxes into it? Or is he still hyper fixated? You know what I mean? And then from there, that would put us in a position where we could assess what the next step is going to be as far as, okay, cool. If he seems like he's calm, right? Then we could start some minor interactions where we start having him loose, supervise with the muzzle on or something like that, you know what I mean? And like really monitor the situation and see what it's gonna look like and stuff like that. If it's not, if he still seems like he's concerned, that means he needs a little bit longer. You know what I mean? He's still like, I don't know what's going on with this, right? And it might need to be a little bit longer. I worked with a family recently that was in a similar boat where there was like 3 kids, all like under 10 years old or something like that. And they were coming to the house like 2 or 3 times a week. And this dog was just super, super uncomfortable with them, right? And same deal, would just like hyper fixate and like almost like kind of like chase at them and stuff like that. And kind of followed the same principle of like the long bed stay. And I think it was like, you remember that house we went to that in-home lesson with? Yeah. I think it wound up being like 2 months or 2.5 months of just like bed stay, and like the dog chilled out eventually and just started realizing like, I don't have anything I need to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, one, obviously, you know, mom's handling the situation right now. I don't have anything to be scared about with them. And 2, I'm gonna get corrected if I mind my business too much, or I don't mind my own business enough, I should say, right? And start going over there, right? So I really think that's probably the routine you're gonna have to implement right off the rip, and just see, again, put a time frame of a month on it. That's 4 times, right? Bed stay the entire time, right? You can give them some breaks, or you put them in another room or something like that, obviously, but maybe, you know, 2 hours on the bed or something like that where he just chills out, and see what you get after that. And once we have that information, that will let us know what we need to do after that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then, you know, once you do that, if you want, what we could do is we could schedule like where I do like an in-home or something like that when you guys are all there, where I could come then see what you guys are seeing and be like, okay, cool, well, you know, this seems to be going pretty well, or, you know, if he does seem a little bit better, so let's start the introduction and we could do it together in a controlled way or something like that. But the first step, regardless, is going to be that. He needs to just learn to just coexist around the grandson without worrying about anything. You know what I mean?